So Matt, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Matt Ganem joining us today, and Maureen, I know that you and Matt go back a little bit, right?
She's my adopted mother.
That's right. I had to write a book and put him in it and call him out on when am I going to be able to adopt you in the book so that he would finally say that, but now he has no choice.
Yeah, so we filed papers.
Yeah.
We're going to make it happen.
The adoption's coming.
Yeah.
The adoption's coming. I love it.
Through the system. So.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And so person in recovery?
Yes.
Is that how you identify? Do you do person in recovery, addict in recovery?
No, I am a recovering heroin addict. I celebrated 13 years, April 21st.
Yeah.
And I get the language change and everything, but one of the things that I take a lot of pride in is the stigma that's attached to it and being able to overcome the odds that are stacked up against us and trying to inspire other people.
Right.
I think it's, and I respect the people that use the language. I do understand that there's an aspect that needs to be changed for people to accept it, but I like smacking people upside the head with it. So when, when I was doing like testimonies at the State House, like I want them to know, like, to emphasize that I was a heroin addict.
Right.
I'm in recovery. Look what I've been able to accomplish. And I'm no different than you. I'm no different than the next person.
Right.
And I want them to see that they can like achieve greatness, that they can do things that, like, when you're trapped in addiction, you can't see that light at the end of the tunnel. That, like, if you can put the drugs down and start moving forward and into your recovery and getting clean, that, like, literally the possibilities are endless, like, with what you can do. So
Maureen and I had this conversation the other day.
Yeah. Maureen's probably going to yell at me.
No, I don't think I understood as well as I do now that perspective between you and Mike and Amy Dresner. I understand. I definitely understand something, which is, I mean, this is what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
Is getting different people's perspectives and then understanding them. So I definitely understand in a different way now.
Yeah.
Well, me personally, I use something similar, just addict in recovery or recovered addict, depending on the environment. But, it's what I identify as.
Yeah.
And it's our words, and I use them to have an impact as well. I feel like if we get rid of the impact, then we get rid of the impact of this illness.
If we soften everything and we try to make it, you know what I mean, just in like a different light or to be more acceptable, then we're compromising like who we are.
Sure.
Now, that's my personal
and the pain and the journey.
That's my personal opinion. Again, like going back to like the people that want to identify in that way, like that's the language that they choose to use.
Yeah.
I've always been that, like, trying to be in your face. I remember, like, even just like with my poetry, when I started putting it out there, people used to like push me not to because of like how graphic it was. Or, you don't want to talk. You don't want to talk like that. You don't want to talk about those things. You don't want to share your story. Even like, family members, whatever, they want it to be kept in the dark. And as addicts, we're defiant by nature. So I was like, oh yeah, you're going to tell me that I can't talk like this? Like, okay, I don't care who's there, governor, mayor, state senators, reps, politicians in Washington. Like, that's how I'm going to talk. I'm going to talk because that's who I identify with. That's my story. That's my struggle. That's also what, gave me the motivation to stay clean. So I never turned back to that low life homeless junkie that I was when I was getting high.
Did that hurt, Maureen?
I'm sorry.
Just a little.
Just a little.
Last
I was
word.
talking about acting.
Yeah,
I know.
There was a time.
There was. People see me for a little different than who I was back then. But like when I was getting high, I was a complete scumbag. Like I'm a completely different person today. And but when I'm getting high, like I'm not to be trusted. I'm a lying, cheating, stealing thief.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I can identify with that.
And I think language is powerful. I think words, obviously, like the poetry thing's been a huge therapeutic tool for me in staying clean, but like words have an impact. And like even sometimes just trying to like lay the hammer on somebody so they can like open their eyes and just feel it, like feel whatever that pain is or whatever, whatever that triumph is. Like, I think that, people that have a way with words, like it makes a huge impact on people that might not have that experience with it or might be, foreign to the conversation. So
it helps them identify too. Being able to talk about something and seeing how similar we are or how much we share, I think is huge. Right.
It's all about building connections. That's what, that's the basis of recovery, is trying to when I got high, I isolated and I was alone. I don't like sharing, and I don't want you messing up my nod. So like when you're isolated and alone, you sit with all that misery, and you're in the same like rinse, repeat cycle of waking up, hustling, getting high, going to sleep, waking up, doing the same thing. You know what I mean? Like the exact opposite of that is building a connection. It's identifying. It's, you know, just connecting with different people over similar interests or that support system that you have.
Right.
And I feel like that's like the biggest springboard to achieve recovery, is building those connections and finding, you know, your path to get out of that. So.
Oh, I mean, the fellowship, that drew me in. I was alone and isolated. I was definitely not, I did not fit in, you know, like when I got sober and came out of detox or treatment, I did not fit into whatever was going on out here. Like they're like, stop doing drugs, be normal. I was like, I mean, I'll try that, but that's not, I don't have that skill set. So, you know, being in the halls and being around those other folks and sharing stories and talking like we talk, but also seeing them being well was huge for me. You know what I mean? Like if they came in and they were talking really soft about an illness that I didn't identify with, I'd be like, I don't think you have the same thing I have. I'm sorry, man. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna keep coming, because it sounds like you got something a little gentler than what I'm going through. Because again, I was a raging lunatic that was out there being arrested, causing crime, selling drugs. Again, thief, liar, all these things.
Monkey that sold bananas.
Right. And if I came in and you were like, oh, well, I mean, I just have a substance use disorder, I'd be like, you and I don't have the same illness. I've got other things going on.
I mean, that's a huge thing in early recovery. Something for me, like it was hard for me to connect with people on like therapy or my counselor and programs with somebody that didn't have that same type of experience.
Sure.
And when I went to the Hamilton House in Dorchester, and my counselor there ran like I ran. So it was like, it opened up me to not be like holding back information or, you know, just looking at them differently, where like this guy, he calls BS when he sees it, held me accountable. You know what I mean? He did A, B, and C, and D, and that's exactly what I did. So it was just something that we could connect on, and it was easier for me to like communicate the things that I was going through with him. You know what I mean? But from somebody who had been in the trenches of their drug addiction, compared to like, you know, the softer language of the illness and the sickness and stuff like that.
Well, I think, Maureen, you talked about that being beneficial for you, you know, for the parent, for the family, you know, to better understand and appreciate or wrap your head around this illness, or, you know, feel more comfortable about the fact that this is happening and it's not like a moral failing and has nothing to do with the character. You know, it's an illness. And for the families, I think the language is extremely important, right?
Yeah, I think so too. And I think in a medical setting too. You know, you're bringing somebody into an emergency room. You don't want to say, I have my raging, you know, I can't even say
heroin addict.
I brought
a son.
Yeah, I brought a liar and a thief to you. I'm hoping you can help.
Hopefully they don't manipulate you for more drugs somehow before they leave.
I mean, you know, I'm still getting reports of people saying that they don't, when they're narcating somebody, they don't say, I have somebody's overdosing, I have somebody who is not breathing, who is not responsive, because they're still afraid of that. So I think that, you know, when we start talking about language, if we, you know, we have to be very careful in the medical setting, I think. And also with parents that are new to this, and they, you know, to explain the, you know, physiological things that happen and that create addiction. I think it's more palatable, and because we don't want, you know, to go back to that old tough love. They're a liar, they're a cheat, let's cut them off, you know? Right. So I think somewhere in between.
I read an article the other day that said, I think it was in Europe or something, they say opiate poisoning. I've got someone here that's experiencing an opioid poisoning. Because it's not an overdose until they die. That's the way they're looking at it. So it's not an overdose. This is opiate poisoning.
Oh, we're gonna give our government some great ideas on how to milk the statistics differently with that one.
Just a little, This was just opiate poisoning.
So I think it's definitely beneficial for the family with the language, and especially with. If you look at when I was getting high and what my family had to go through, like my father couldn't talk to anybody because it was his fault that I turned to an addict. My mother, same thing. And a lot of times they felt like that when, like, I wasn't raised to be a heroin addict. I wasn't raised to go down the path that I went down. If anything, they wanted the complete opposite. And I feel like a lot of parents bear that burden. And when their kid is like caught in the grips of it, they try to overcompensate so much and feeling like it's on them or that it's their fault, that they put so much pressure on them trying to fix it, when ultimately it's not their fault that it happened, and it's not their love that's gonna that's going to
Right.
save them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like educating them on that and the language around that for parents, it's definitely something that is helpful, especially in today's day and age where it's such a relevant topic, whether you're in, Beverly or Dorchester, whether you're in Lexington
Mm-hmm.
or Somerville, like wherever you go, addiction is hitting. And, I feel like trying to educate parents on the causes of addiction and just dealing with their own journey of trying to just support and love their struggling son or daughter, it's definitely helpful.
2 different journeys.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I
But
think
they
that's
both
really
need
important.
the same support.
Right.
Right. Exactly. And that's so important because, and like you said, I don't know, 10 years ago, I didn't know where to go. And what I wound up doing is going to Matt like 5 times a day.
Yeah.
Sometimes more. And so yeah, Matt taught me everything I know about not only helping my own daughter, but helping anybody else. And also the attitude to have when helping somebody, that the door is always open. There's no giving up on anybody. There's you were an enormous part of my education in this whole thing, both in helping my own child and learning how to help myself and stop helping so much my own child, and but also in everything I learned too, and how to go about, you're the only person I ever met that even when working for a treatment center, somebody calls you and you still help them just as much as if they were going into your treatment center. And that's very unusual.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. We're helping people,
right.
what I mean? Like I get working in the treatment industry. I get some of the perception. It gets frustrating for me when I see other people that don't care as deeply. You know what I mean? Because being in it, you see that a lot of people are just there for their clients or for only people that are going to benefit them.
Right.
And I remember what it's like to be alone on my last run, where you pick the phone up and nobody answers. My father wasn't answering, and it's because of what I caused. My mother, friends wanted no part of me because like every time I called, it would be for something, and then when you call these places, I don't know how it was for you. I'm sure it's similar, but when we call, hey, no beds, call in an hour, and you'd have to repeatedly call, and they were so like, did not care to try to help you or give you any help or any information. It was like really a lonely place, because I feel like I'm a horrible human being. I already have the guilt and the shame. The window of opportunity to try to get help is so small. Like I would pick up the phone, I would call maybe 1-2 places. If I got shot down that day, who knows when the next time I was ready to try and get help. So when somebody calls me, like, hey, I need help. Like I heard you. Nah, I'm sorry. You have Mass Health. Oh, I'm sorry. You have no insurance. You know what I mean? Like on the way over here, I was getting somebody in High Point for a free care bed.
Right.
Like you do things with the best intentions, good things happen to you. And for me, like when I was foreign to the treatment industry, I didn't go to private treatment. I went through public programs. I never left the state of Massachusetts, regardless if I worked for a place that was out of state. And I feel like because I tried doing the best I possibly could for people, regardless of their circumstances or where they went, these great opportunities ended up happening for me, to the point that I was able to like I built a treatment center in Massachusetts. I put all the pieces together and I staffed it. And I put people that I felt like cared just as much as I do into the place to try to create this culture. But again, it just stems from like my staff doesn't just help the clients, because I've instilled in them that like if somebody calls you, regardless if we can get him into to my place, or whether we can get him into a High Point, a Danvers cab, or any other place that we possibly can, that if they call, we find them a bed. And we don't stop until we try to find them a bed.
And that's the truth. And I've never met anybody that really said it and meant it the way you do. I mean, I'm not quite sure that, I know for sure I would have never gone into this if it wasn't for you, because no, it's true. It's like, and I hopefully have helped a lot of people, but
you've helped a tremendous amount of people.
It wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for you, though, because I learned what you're supposed to do first. Yeah. And then I saw all the bad stuff after that.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is what this person does. And then I saw everybody else.
There's
exceptions.
It's very different.
Yeah.
And a lot of, like, I've had a lot of friends that like get into that line of work, and I try to brace them beforehand that like you're gonna see an ugly side of things, because that's what it is. There's some real scumbags out there, and not to I have some other choice words, but I'm trying to keep it PG-13 to the best of my ability. But I just, people that they're only in it for one reason, and they and then people get treated like they're a number and not a human being, or it's just a really, really ugly side of recovery, and it shines a real dark light on like people that are trying to do it the right way, because there are a bunch of people out there that try to do it with genuine care, and they want to help people, and that's the root of it. But I feel like a lot of like the worst part, the illegal activities, patient brokering, people that pick up the phone, and if you don't have a certain type of insurance, they just shut you down and say, "Hey, good luck here. We can't help you." You know what I mean? Like I think that there's like a large shadow that gets cast on, on people that try to do it the right way. They end up all getting grouped in to the same type of practices.
So when you first, first opened, I think it was the first couple of weeks that you opened, we had Mandy on a couple months ago now, I guess.
It was a couple months, yeah.
Yeah, we had Mandy on, and she talked about how she was doing, and if you had read the book, Mike, you would know that
another dig.
At least one an episode. If Mandy called me and I didn't know what to do with her, the first person I called was Matt.
Yeah.
So, and he said, "Bring her in."
To your point, I mean, I called at those little moments where I was like, "Man, I got to go. I got to go to detox. I got to go clean up. I got to do something." It was like I would, and this is going to age me a little bit, but I would beat my dealer.
Yep.
And then I would call detox and leave the voicemail with my social, my birth date or whatever, and I just see who calls first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like I called 2 or 3 detoxes. I called my dealer, who I obviously owe a little money to. I'm gonna see if he'll still call me back.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens today. It's just a Tuesday. Like if I can go in, I'll go in. And it's like to wait for someone to get to the point where they're done comes with so much risk. You know what I mean? Like it's those moments where it's like, I want to stop. I want to stop, but I don't know if I really want to stop, but I'm willing to try it. And that's that maybe day that you get, that those are those phone calls that if you as a professional, you take that and you don't see that as a doorway in to try to help motivate someone to take it to the next step, then you're in it just for a job. You're like, oh, you're not ready. You don't have the right insurance.
And for the person that's calling, leaving their number and their social, you're pushing them even further away from the opportunity of getting clean.
Right.
Because what happens when you don't jump on that opportunity and you're not pushing forward, you're like, all right, well, I'm just going to go get high. Yeah. And who knows, whenever that next time that you're like, man, I'm fed up. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
I'm not going to call. Nobody's going to answer.
Yeah, exactly. And then you start using those excuses. Well, why don't you go to detox? Well, the last 15 times I called, they didn't have a bed and told me to call back in an hour. Right. You know what I mean? Like,
it's hard. I mean, you were talking about, the illegal side of this industry, or like the sick, gross, money focused side of this industry. And then there's the other side of it, which is the burnout side of this industry. There's like, there's underpaid, overworked people running the same state system that you and I went through. Like I went through the Salvation Army, Danvers Detox, halfway houses, and the people working there, they want to help, but they're not being paid enough for the work that they're doing.
And they just get taxed. I mean, we're dealing with a sickness that like brings out the worst in people. And when you're in the field and you're trying to help that, help people, you get a great group of people. You got some people that like push your stress levels to like insane heights. And it's like, there's a really bad burnout rate for working in the field.
Of course there is.
And a lot of times I feel like most of it, like my program, 95% of the staff is in recovery. And like, just because they work in the field doesn't mean that they're not just as close to going back out there. Like I never forget that, regardless of whatever position I'm in, however many days, weeks, months, years that I have in recovery, that like I can always end up back homeless in the streets. Like that's always a possibility.
It's real stuff. Yeah. It happened.
Yeah.
Could happen again.
Easily.
Yeah. That's why we write the books, so we don't forget.
The poetry is like the biggest thing for me, and not like I write some of the darkest things that I've been through, and I reread it and I'm like, you know what, today I don't really feel like sleeping in Boston Commons in 20-degree weather. Or I don't feel like, thinking my drug dealer was my best friend because he might have been the only person that would pick up the phone for me.
Only one that seemed like they cared.
Yes, I swear to God he cared.
Always called me back. Oh, that's awful. Now, for you, I mean, for Maureen, for like the family side of things, because, you know, we're talking about our attempts to call in. You know, we're talking about our interaction with programs and how hard it is to like call and get compassion or call and get, you know, somebody to see us as a human being in need of help and not just a junk bag who's probably called 6 other places, and it doesn't even matter if they call us back because that's our side of things. But for you, for the parent, for the family, for the mom, for the dad that's calling in, trying to find help for their loved one, what was your experience? What did you get?
Well, you know, so then that's the thing. It became really clear very, very quickly that she was not going to let me help her.
Right.
So it's like all the stuff that I learned, because at first she wouldn't go in at all. So I just learned as much as I could possibly learn, tried to connect to other people while she was refusing treatment completely. And I didn't even know where she is. Once I really kind of started to learn what to do, then she wouldn't come to me. What she wound up doing is a lot of times she would go to Matt. So now I know that what I do when I deal with families and that they're trying to get their kids in. If I can get them to call me while they're calling to try to get into treatment, I keep checking in with them. At least they're not experiencing that. They're not talking to their parents because they don't want to talk to their parents. And they're also not, and I'm not judgmental because it's not my child, right? So I'm one step back. But while they're calling 5 different places, they can call me and tell me how that's doing. And I can call them and say, oh, did you hear anything back? Or I can, you know, see if I know anywhere that has a bed. And so I can be that person. And that's what Matt always did for my daughter.
Right.
So, I mean, because it's awful, but the parents aren't the ones that can help because they're, you know, teetering on am I going to go and as the time ticks away, or am I just going to go get more drugs? And they know that they're disappointing their parents.
Right.
So that doesn't help. That feeling of disappointing somebody does not make people not want to do drugs. It makes them want to do drugs.
And a lot of times for the family, it's hard to even connect with the place because they're the ones that are making the phone calls more than their son or daughter, and places won't even talk to them. And then the struggle of even just getting your child to get on the phone. Right. And then us as addicts to be like, well, if you give me $40 right now, I'll get on the phone and get to detox.
Yeah, I never give anybody $40.
That's that desperate.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you were saying earlier, like or actually, I think you were saying that you know, the family, they didn't cause it, and you can't get in there and really do much about it. It's like, you know, if they don't have a you or me or a Maureen or somebody, an advocate that's showing them or telling them, then they're in it and they feel like they caused it. And they feel like if they caused it, as long as they can figure out how it was started, then they can go in and stop it.
Looking for the
and
fix it.
Man, can they cause a lot of damage on the way? You know what I mean? Like a lot of compromises, bribes. And you got this, you know, person struggling with addiction, addict, whatever. You got this person substance in the family who because of their illness has them so willing and capable to manipulate and lie, cheat, and steal.
We're gonna and then you got heartstrings.
And then you got mom and dad, and they're like, "What can I do?
Yeah. What do you need?
How do we fix this?"
How
and
do we
you're
compromise?
like, "I mean, it's real simple. I just need you like your car and $100.
Yeah,
and this thing's good tomorrow. It's done."
And you get it, and then it's like, "All right, not tonight, tomorrow."
Yeah. No, I just need to sleep. I'm really tired, and I mean,
I'm too tired to do this.
You're stressing me out. I'm gonna go get high.
Parents are on such eggshells that they don't want to push. They don't want to pull. Oh well, I got him to agree. Well. All right, now he's saying no, but I don't want to push it. He's in a good space now because obviously we're high.
Oh, my God.
I'm in the best space. Ma, I love you. I'm sorry for all the pain that I caused until I wake up the next morning. I'm sitting on the toilet like, Ma, I need $100.
Now.
You know, it's so funny because you think that you know your child better than anybody. How are you going to say something that I couldn't say? I know my kid. You don't know them.
Right.
But
we know the illness. You know who your kid was before they got sick.
Exactly.
We know them
the
now.
Sickness.
Yeah, I know them now. I know what drives them today.
So my daughter wouldn't talk to me. She would only text me when she was really in a bad way. And I used to I'd send the text to Matt. He would tell me what to say, and I would change the pronouns and send it back to her. And then eventually she'd start saying, Jesus, God, you're really good. I never would have thought about it like that before. I mean, neither would have I, but it was his words. But she wouldn't, at that point, she hadn't developed a relationship where she could call him yet. And we were like kind of in that middle ground there where I was still, she was still talking to me and I didn't know what to say. Oh, I thought I did, but what he was telling me to say is not what I would have said.
Well,
So
it's like
there's
regular parenting doesn't apply.
right.
No.
Exactly.
So whatever you've got,
logical thinking does not work.
Whatever instinctual parenting that you've been doing probably really well for years prior has absolutely nothing to do with how to deal with someone that's struggling with substance abuse. Nothing at all. It's a completely different animal. And that love and compassion and pity and all that stuff that you have for us when we're sick is actually the conduit that we use to get in there and get the things that we want. So you're in there trying to love and help, and we're using that love to try to keep our sickness going because we're so sick. And that's something that, like, you need somebody that's outside of the circle to step in and say, hey, you got to cut that out.
Exactly. And then she wouldn't get mad at him. You know, when you know,
because she knows better.
No, and
like, oh, this guy gets it.
my answer became, I love you very much. I will not contribute to anything that will contribute to killing yourself, but I will do anything I can to help you. Now call Matt.
Tell me what Matt said. I love it. And that's really hard. I mean, to get, and I know you see it, you know, you're getting those phone calls. I assume you get them from parents too, right?
All the time.
And, you know, those phone calls where it's like, what do I say to them? What can I do? What can I change? And it's like, there's really not a lot. I mean, if you want to intervene, there's certain things that you can do. But otherwise, it's like, the one thing you need to stop doing is whatever you were doing before you called me.
Yeah.
Start there.
Well, Maureen was just saying on, like, I will not contribute to your disease is the biggest thing. Don't hand over money. I mean, you can still love somebody from afar.
Yep.
And that's not even really tough love. That's just common sense. Like, if you keep stealing from me, I should probably not hang out with you. Like,
exactly. You're not allowed at the house because jewelry or my checkbook goes missing. My wallet.
You keep breaking dishes, peeing in my fish tank, stealing my stuff, like yelling at the kids. Like, there's 100 reasons you shouldn't be at my house.
Yep.
But I would compromise that because you're my kid.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So when you sit with someone like yourself,
when you remove yourself from this situation, Maureen was saying it earlier, it's really easy to help from an outside perspective when you're not emotionally invested.
Yeah.
So, like, I also, for me personally, there's a lot of people that I've been able to help. But then when it comes to, like, my mother had some things that went on with her that, like, forget it. Everything I'm really good at, I was horrendous with.
You're emotionally compromised.
Yeah, because I'm compromised in this name. Yeah. Right? Good, very close friends. Like, it's hard for me to do anything because, like, I'm emotionally invested. I have years, like, I'm blinded by certain things where, like, whether, you know, I've taken friends to my center where, like, I am not involved in any of this because, like, our friendship will compromise any integrity I have with this job just because, like, I have too much investment. There's an emotional connection. There's history, memories, all that other stuff compared to, like, helping Katie in the beginning. I didn't have that. I didn't have the same emotional connection with her that I have now because it's, you know, we've known each other for years at this point. But in the beginning, it's easy to be that outside perspective where you're not in the thick of it. And sometimes when you have those blinders on, you're looking for that quick fix. How can I resolve this with this? So I can do this to help her get there. You just have blinders on like.
Well, it's contagious, man. The closer you get to it and the longer you're around it, the sicker you're going to get.
Absolutely.
You know? And if you care about them, if you love them, you compromise. There's not much you can do about that, especially if you birthed them. Brought them into this world. It's like.
I find myself, I get attached to some of these kids that Magnolia gives scholarships to. So, like, for example, you have somebody right now at Barry's and he's all yours now. I'm gonna be in for all the good stuff and anything bad, I hope it doesn't happen, but he's John's baby now.
I think he's got a move out date of like 2022. He's just staying. He says
he's an awesome
guy. We got him a permanent room.
No, but now he's like a son. So I know that I wouldn't be able to make good decisions.
You can't think objectively. You just can't do it. I mean, you can't look at a situation like that where, you know, that person has any emotional control or power over you. And that's why I look at it as Steve Jobs used to talk about this reality distortion field, or people used to talk about it about him, that like when you were with him and he would start spitting ideas out that this was like this reality distortion field, all the things that aren't really possible seemed possible when you talk to him.
Yeah.
And, you know, the same could be said with us when we're sick. Like there's a reality distortion field. Like you're sitting with me and like you said earlier, I'll steal your money and apologize. I'm like, I got your wallet in my pocket, but I'm like, it could have, that window was a little open.
Yeah,
like somebody could have done it and we should probably check. And you're like, okay, we probably should.
Well, because you want to believe it's not you.
Right.
That's what it
better.
is.
Illusionally, you want to believe,
right.
You want to believe that everything that we're saying is truth, and it's just
right. But it's not, and that's the reality distortion field. So the simple act of taking somebody out of that for a few minutes and just letting the fog clear, and they're like, "Wow, this really is chaotic." And that's what you do, Maureen. That's what you do with those phone calls, with that first interaction. It's like just giving them enough time to not be drowning in it, so they can look around and be like, "Whoa, I think you might be right. I think I might need to do something about this."
Yeah. Yep.
And
Absolutely.
that's invaluable. I mean, what parent doesn't want a little bit of time to clear their head?
Yeah. Well, not to have to make all the decisions, because when you don't know what you're doing and when it's so important. Yeah. I because you can't know everything.
No, but that's one of the luxuries that we have in today's day and age, is that you can do a lot of research. There's a lot of like parent support groups out there. Like anytime I have a mother that calls me for a child, I always try to push them, whether it's an online thing, if they're not comfortable meeting in person, or something that's like a peer driven where there's other support, because like families need that same type of healing that the struggling addict needs. They need that network. They need somebody to bounce ideas off of. Well, my wallet went missing and the window was open a crack. My son swore to God that somebody could have snuck in the 5 minutes we weren't around.
Yeah, he took it.
Yeah. And the parent will be, your kid stole it. Yeah. He's helping you look for it while he had it hidden.
He posted it on Snapchat. Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's it's like, the parents, they want to believe so bad.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you can get on the phone with somebody that can give you even just a little bit of insight, just a little bit of like, no, is it possible that your son took the wallet? I mean, I guess it's possible. All right, well, do you know why? I mean, who else would want to take it? Just explore that just for a little bit. Sometimes it's really beneficial.
And even just saying, like, whatever the scenario is, when
say it out loud.
Say it out loud.
Saying
and they hear it out loud.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wait, you're right.
Yeah, that doesn't sound the same as it did in my head.
Because you can't believe that your kid would do that. You can't wrap your head around it. Even still, I will go looking for things and they won't be there, and I'm like, well, maybe they're lost. I'm like, no, they're gone. Maureen, stop, they're gone. We were cleaning out the house because I moved and I had golf clubs, and standing in the garage saying, oh, well, I haven't used them in a really long time. I'm like, but I want to use them. And Randy said, why don't you just put them on Craigslist? And Katie looked over and said, no, they won't sell. I already did that.
I already tried.
I'm like, oh my God, my golf clubs are almost not here.
Yeah, that's funny.
Oh, God.
All right. I would like to thank all of our listeners for joining us today on this episode of Collateral Damage. As always, if you'd like to find out all of the different ways that you can listen to and subscribe to our podcast, you can visit our website, which is www.cdpodcast.com. There are many different ways to listen, download, and subscribe, so we encourage you to choose the one that is most appropriate for you. And as always, we would encourage our listeners to get informed and stay connected. Thank you for joining us.